Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It is Mindy here, and today I wanted to touch on a subject that I never thought I would do a video on, and that is musky fragrances. I never quite figured that would be a genre I'd be interested in until one fragrance changed that, and that fragrance is Mustiamat by Lancome. I found that that was a love. I have a full bottle on the way, and a fragrance that I really enjoy. So I thought it would be fun to explore other musk fragrances and really get a feel for if this is a genre that I love as much as my coveted gourmand fragrances. So like many of you, I've been exploring all kinds of samples through the pandemic and really built my collection up. I don't even want to think how many fragrances I have in my collection. There's a rule when you're gambling. That rule is you never count your money when you're sitting at the table. I follow that rule when I'm playing blackjack, and I'm gonna go ahead and apply that to fragrance as well because my collection has grown quite a bit, and I don't think it'll be helpful to count up how many I have at this point because I think I'll get in trouble in my home life. So before we jump in, let's talk about what musk is in a fragrance. So I had to look this up. I wasn't quite sure other than I've seen that it might come from mule deer in the past. So this is what I found. Musk, a note that can be described as earthy, woody, animalistic, and intoxicating, is hard to miss. It's one of those fragrance-based notes that smells like your skin but better and lasts for an oddly long time. Another thing that I found was that musk is a heavy base note scent that is usually compared with woodsy and earthy smells. It was originally the name of the odor coming from a male musk deer from which it is harvested. So I don't know that they harvest it. I think synthetic musk is probably more popular these days. There could be musk that comes from plants, I believe, don't quote me on that. But yeah, I think it can come from a couple different sources and be synthetic. So without further ado, I'm gonna touch on all kinds of fragrances, some fragrance oils, some designer fragrances that have a hint of musk, but it doesn't have a heavy presence, and then shift over to fragrances where that musk chord is much more prominent and noticeable in the fragrances. So let's get started. The first fragrance I'll touch on is called Egyptian Musk, and it is by Nemat International. And I tested this out actually at Whole Foods. I don't have a bottle, I don't have a sample with me. I just tried it at the store, and I found it to be a very interesting musk. I get citrus and I get powderiness from it, but it does lean masculine on me. It wasn't one that I thought I would pick up a full bottle for, but definitely an interesting smelling fragrance that I think a lot of people would try. So if you happen to go into Whole Foods, I would recommend looking at some of the options that they have available. They also have fragrances by Kuumba made, and I think they're oils. I do have one fragrance by Kuumba made, and it's called Persian Garden. This is a beautiful oil. It is a soft floral, almost like goddess-like scent. Beautiful. One of my friends highly suggested it to me, and so I'm interested in the Kuumba made line and would love to smell the Egyptian musk version of the fragrance in the Kuumba made line. If any of you know about it, let me know in the comments section below. Definitely one I'd like to get my nose on. So next up, I'll talk about Lazy Sunday Morning in the Replica line by Maison Margiela. And this is available in Sephora, and I'm sure it's available in other platforms as well. This is a fresh scent with muskiness. It has aldehydes. And one thing I found in my fragrance journey is that I have a strained relationship at times with white florals, definitely a strained relationship with aldehydes. A perfect example of that is Chanel No. 5 Eau Premiere. I thought that would be my Chanel No. 5. That would be the one for me. The reviews were sparkling. Everyone loves that fragrance. It just did not work for me, and I'm sort of attributing it to the soapiness from the aldehydes, and I feel that that's the same way with this fragrance. It is soapy, it's a clean, fresh fragrance, but just based on my experience with that genre, I'm not sure this is one I would ever want to add to my collection, but I do think that people that enjoy white florals mixed with that aldehydic soapiness would really appreciate this fragrance. Next up is Good Girl by Carolina Herrera, and this is one that I enjoy, but it is not a love for me. I'll be perfectly honest about that. I get muskiness, but it's not heavily noticeable. As I mentioned before, this fragrance has a lot of different notes in it, and Yeah, the muskiness seems to be sort of in the background there. You get a little bit of white floral, but the notes in this fragrance are blended very well, so that I don't really pull out the cocoa. I don't necessarily pull out the coffee, the cinnamon, the praline. It's warm, it's spicy, probably because all of that comes together beautifully with the woods. But really this is a nice fragrance. It is not a love for me, but a strong like, and the muskiness is there. It is in the base of this fragrance. So if you like designer fragrances and you want to give musk a try and see if something like this would work for you, I would recommend getting your nose on this one. Plus, I love the bottle. I've always really enjoyed the bottle. It's reminiscent of going out. It's reminiscent of getting dressed up for office events, and so yeah, I like the bottle for this one, and I'll keep it in my collection forever. Okay, next up is Hypnotic Poison by Dior, and this fragrance does have a musk note in the base. It's sandalwood, almond, vanilla, and musk at the base, and that's exactly what I pick up from this fragrance. I pick up the almond, the vanilla, and it's warm, it's cozy. Some people claim that they get a Play-Doh vibe or a slight Dr. Pepper vibe from this fragrance. And I can sort of see where they're coming from with that. It is seductive, it's pretty, it's beautiful, and it's gourmand like I like. This is one I'm not reaching for a ton, but I do like to wear at times in the cooler weather, and one that, that I do have to crave to wear. So that is Hypnotic Poison, a lovely scent, about a 7.5 out of 10 for me. One that I reach for when I want to feel cozy, warm, and comforted. Hypnotic Poison by Dior. Okay, so the next fragrance that I'll touch on is Flowerbomb by Viktor and Rolf. And this also has musk and patchouli in the base. And this is another very popular fragrance. There's a reason it's so popular. It's so pretty, it's feminine, it's beautiful. This is one I'll have in my collection forever just because it is an easy reach. It's a crowd-pleasing scent. It's very likable. I get floral, patchouli, a little bit of white floral, but this is warm on my skin, and I've noticed that I really enjoy fragrances that have freesia in them. This is no different, and I think that might be one of the floral notes that I really appreciate in this one. You know, I mentioned before, I wish this one projected a little bit more. There were Flowerbomb Explosion, Flowerbomb Extreme fragrances released in the past. I don't know if they're still accessible, but definitely a stronger version of this would be awesome. But in the meantime, love the fragrance. I'll keep it in my collection forever. The musk isn't heavily noticeable to me, but it is there in the background, and I wanted to call it out in this video for somebody who wants to try a light musk. Now the next fragrance I'll talk about is a very hyped fragrance in 2020, maybe even dating back to 2019, and that is Delina by Parfums de Marly. Now I've mentioned before that I have a clone from Alexandria Fragrances called Lady Diana. This is also supposed to be identical, if not maybe very similar to First Kiss by Belayered, and yeah, this is very, very similar to Delina. I don't think I could tell the difference, and it's a beautiful fragrance. This is fresh, it's fruity, it has sweetness, it's sour though, and I love that sourness that you get from this fragrance. The dry down is stunning, and there is musk in this fragrance in the mid. So you have Petalia, musk, cashmeran, vanilla, and bergamot in the mid, and in the base is cedar, Haitian vetiver, incense, and nutmeg. I think you could easily pick up this fragrance at a lower cost from Delina to get a feel for if you truly want Delina. This is a great way to sort of test out and try out what the fragrance vibe is like to determine if it's full bottle worthy for you. You know, you can always sample, of course, as well, but this is my second bottle of Lady Diana, and I love it. Another fragrance where you get that muskiness, but it's not a prominent accord. It's sort of laying there in the background, and it works beautifully in this one. I had to go there. This is Coco Mademoiselle Intense by Chanel, and there is white musk in the base of this fragrance. In the base, you have patchouli, tonka bean, vanilla, labdanum, and white musk. And I've mentioned before, yeah, this is one of my favorite fragrances of all time. It dries down beautifully on the skin. The musk is there in the background. When I look at the accords in Fragrantica, it's not heavily picked up on, The chords that are the most noticeable on this fragrance are citrus, vanilla, patchouli, sweet, woody, amber, warm, spicy, balsamic, rose, and fruity. But if you want to try a fragrance that has white musk in it, this is definitely one I would check out. I would test before you buy because I don't know that everyone would love this, but I do think it's a beautiful, stunning, intoxicating, crowd-pleasing fragrance that most people would really enjoy. Love this fragrance. That is Coco Mademoiselle Intense by Chanel. Okay, the next couple fragrances that I'll talk about is the Chanel Chance EDP and the Chanel Chance EDT. Both of these have musk in the base. Both of them have patchouli, vanilla, and musk in the base. The EDT actually has vetiver as well. And both of these are classy, stunning fragrances. Now, if you were trying to decide between the two of these fragrances, a couple things to keep in mind. Again, they're both classy, they're both elegant, but this one does tend to come off a little bit fresher, a little less sweet, maybe a little bit more sharp than the EDP. The EDP seems to have maybe a little bit sweeter of a presence, a little more vanilla in it, and I actually find that the EDP is slightly more wearable. Now, with that being said, I do personally, at this point in time, prefer the EDT. I like that woodiness and that earthiness and even that sharpness that you get from this fragrance. When I have this on my skin and I put my nose to it, it almost is too much. It almost smells like a lemon cleaning product. But when you pull back and you get just that sillage in passing, I think this one is stunning. One thing that I would say though, while I do enjoy these, I think they're classy, I think they're beautiful, I do tend to reach for the original Coco Mademoiselle more than both of these. So some people may prefer that fragrance to these, but in terms of musk, I think these are great options if you wanted to explore a Chanel and find one that has a little bit of a musky undertone. These would be great to check out. This one has a little bit more musk to my nose. Okay. Now we're at a point where we're going to talk about fragrances that have a little bit more of a noticeable musky accord to them. And the first one that I'll touch on is Lovely by Sarah Jessica Parker. A while back, I purchased a discovery set from Sarah Jessica Parker. It was very low cost, very inexpensive, so a really nice way to check out Sarah Jessica Parker's stash, or if you wanted to try out the NYC Crush, I think it's their coconut fragrance, or Born Lovely is in this as well. So Lovely has patchouli, orchid, and narcissus in the mid, and then musk, woodsy note, cedar, and white amber in the base. Now, this one is very reminiscent of Narciso Rodriguez, the EDT version that I've tested. And I think a lot of people who like that fragrance should check this one out. This one is a little more affordable than the Narciso Rodriguez for her EDT. So definitely one you might want to check out if you're trying to get that same vibe, maybe at a lesser price. And this one is nice. I don't necessarily gravitate towards this. I probably wouldn't want a full bottle. There's woodiness, there's muskiness, there's lavender, and it is nice, but just not one that I would probably consider to be full bottle worthy for me. I tend to gravitate, again, I have a type towards fragrances that are more gourmand-like in nature, and I don't get this from this fragrance, and this fragrance is lacking sort of that vibe and that feel that I like to have in a fragrance. So one I wouldn't pick up, but definitely would be office business setting worthy. And a lot of people would enjoy this. This feels softer, maybe a little bit more wearable, a little more likable than the Narciso Rodriguez for her fragrance. So definitely one you want to get your nose on if you want to explore musk a little bit more. Okay, I promised I would get into those more musky fragrances, but I wanted to circle back to one that I forgot to mention, and that is Tender Romance by Ralph Lauren. And this fragrance is warm, it's comforting, it's spicy a little bit, it's got amber, and this is a stunning fragrance as well. It has benzoin, cashmere wood, and musk in the base, so I didn't want to go through the video without mentioning this particular fragrance because I believe this is also a crowd-pleasing scent. The first time I smelled this was in an office setting. I smelled it on somebody else and she smelled beautiful. She smelled angelic and it was really a stunning fragrance that I went out and bought immediately after I smelled it on her. Now I do have, I believe, a tester bottle, which is why I don't have the normal cap, but still it's a great fragrance. It still smells very beautiful. This is one I've seen referenced a few times in musky fragrance forums and one that people recommend. I would agree with that. It really is beautiful, it's warm, and it is a stunning fragrance. I'm not reaching for this very often, and I'm mad at myself for that. This has been sitting sort of in the back of all of my fragrances, and I regret that. I will be reaching for this one a little bit more moving forward, one that I think a lot of people would enjoy. Now, before I move on, I wanted to mention I do believe this one may be discontinued. So if you're interested in this fragrance, you may want to pick it up soon. I don't know if that's true, but wanted to call that out. Okay, as promised, we are getting to the more musk heavy fragrances. And this one is Pure Musk by Narciso Rodriguez. And this is a musk fragrance that I definitely enjoy. To me, it's nice, it's fresh, it's clean. It is fairly heavy on the florals to my nose, and that makes sense because when I look at the main accords, it's musky, floral, powdery, and woody. This is talked about a lot when people reference musky fragrances, and I would agree that it's a very nice scent. Now, being a gourmandie, I do tend to prefer fragrances that either have a little bit more sweetness or have more of that warm, cozy accord, and this to me is not that. It's clean and it's fresh, like I mentioned, but very nice to the nose. This one I'd love to smell on somebody else, but I don't think at this time I would move forward with buying a full bottle of Pure Musk. I think that this is a crowd-pleasing fragrance, one you could wear into an office setting, any setting. This would be great with jeans and a t-shirt as well. A very wearable fragrance. If you're looking for a fragrance that has a little bit more of that clean vibe, maybe the slightest hint of fresh laundry to it, not overpowering, this might be one to check out. Okay, next up is Must 12 by Kollie, and I have sort of their small mini bottle that I've been experimenting with. In this fragrance is freesia, lotus, musk and jasmine in the mid, and vanilla and sandalwood at the base. Now this fragrance is pretty. It is very, very pretty. And as I mentioned before, I tend to like fragrances that have a freesia note in them. This is soft, I get the floral aspect to it, but to my nose, this one is just okay. There's nothing about the fragrance that really makes me crave it or makes me want to wear it or makes me want to get a full bottle. But I do think if you're looking for a soft, pretty, floral musk, this is one that you have to check out. The accords that are most recognized in this fragrance are floral, musky, powdery, vanilla, woody, and white floral, and I picked those up in this fragrance. This is really nice. Again, one that I won't be adding to my collection as a full bottle unless I wear it a lot and it grows on me, which was the case with Vanilla 28 by Kollie. That was not one that I loved at first sniff. I played around with it a little bit, and as I played more and more, I found myself craving it and absolutely had to add a full bottle, and I would now consider it in my top 11, top 10 fragrances. So this one is one I need to give a little bit more time to, and one I'll continue to explore, but for now, not one I'm gonna be adding to my collection in a full bottle. That is Must 12 by Kollie. Okay, the next fragrance I'll touch on is Narciso Rodriguez for her, the EDT version. And I have a sample from FragranceNet, and this one is a very heavily talked about, very liked fragrance. And I can see why. This one is very similar to Sarah Jessica Parker Lovely, but a lot more heavier to my nose, a lot more floral heavy, and a lot more white floral heavy. So the most noted accords in this fragrance are musky, powdery, white floral, citrus, floral, fruity, and to me, I just pick up so much white floral from this fragrance that it's almost overwhelming to my nose. The first time I tried this, I did not like it. I did take it off within maybe an hour or so, wasn't really into the fragrance and was really sad about it because honestly, this one is very well liked and I assumed that my nose was broken. It does seem a little bit overpowering, a little strong to me, but it does dry down to a softer scent after you wear it for a while. Personally, I just don't think this is one that I would ever want to add to my collection. I do think in passing it might smell nice on somebody else. It is crowd pleasing as far as I can see, just because so many people rank this so high. Just not one for me. It's heavy on the musk, it's heavy on the white floral, and that just isn't a combination that works well for me. So if you are interested in checking out a crowd pleasing musky scent, I would definitely recommend getting your nose on this one, but as I mentioned, it is not for me. That is Narciso Rodriguez EDT for her, but not for her. Guys, I saved the best for last, and that is Mustiamat by Lancome. It shocks me that this fragrance isn't talked about more often. It is a beautiful fragrance to my nose. It is sweet, but it's muskiness done right. I get floralness, I get fruitiness, I get vanilla, I get sweetness, but it all works for me. It's not overpowering in any way, and the floral is done so well. As I mentioned before, I tend to like fragrances that have freesia in them, like Flowerbomb, and this one is no different. The notes for this fragrance: white musk, raspberry, violet leaf in the top. In the mid, there's white musk, damask rose, freesia, and jasmine. And then again in the base is white musk, vanilla, almond, sandalwood, and patchouli. And so that sounds like a lot of musk to me. But again, I've had trouble with some musk-heavy fragrances in the past. I don't really love Narciso Rodriguez for her, the EDT. I don't love Kollie Musk 12, but this one is a love. I actually have a full bottle on the way. It is seeming like this fragrance is a little less accessible. And I had mentioned on a prior video that I thought this was discontinued. It wasn't. It is listed on the Lancome site, but I believe it's out of stock now, so I wasn't able to buy this directly from Lancome at the moment. I did buy from Parfums online in Canada, I believe, but definitely excited to get this one into my collection. Of all of the musk fragrances that I've tried to this point, this is the one that has wowed me the most. I think it has moderate projection and sillage, and I'll be honest, the last video I made with this fragrance in it, I came down into my basement and it smelled so beautiful. That was a catalyst for me to realize, yes, I need this in my collection. Lancome simply does fragrances well, and their La Nuit Trésor line is stunning. I don't have one that I don't love. It's been a win all around for me. So if you like warm, cozy, gourmand fragrances, definitely recommend checking out the La Nuit Trésor line. This is Mustiamat. This has musk in it. The A la Folie is sweet, cozy, warm, so good. And then the original La Nuit Trésor is sort of smoky, it's warm, it's cozy, but it's almost sticky sweet, sort of syrupy. And the nude is very well done, sophisticated coconut. So each one of those fragrances in this line are a thumbs up for me, a 9 or a 10 out of 10. Definitely fragrances you should get your nose on if you like Lancome or if you like the La Nuit Trésor line. I definitely recommend exploring around and seeing what else is in that line if you already enjoy it. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening to the musky fragrances that I'm enjoying, some that I'm not. As I mentioned before, my fragrance preferences are evolving. I'm exploring different fragrance genres that I have not been familiar with in the past. I'm a gourmandie, I have a type, but definitely interested in getting outside of my comfort zone and seeing what else I like. The florals, the ouds, the musks, you know, really getting a sense for all of the different options that are out there. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you soon.